All right, so 5.2 is going from simple to compound interest. So compound interest on saving and investments. Many saving and investment options pay compounded interest. So when you're calculating compound interest, banks add the simple interest to your savings or investments for the next period of time. They then calculate the interest on the principal plus the interest you had made previously. So your simple interest is present value times the interest times the number of years. So let's just calculate simple interest situation here. Tanya invested 500 in an investment option called a GIC, or Guaranteed Investment Certificate. This pays her 4% interest per year, compounded annually for 3 years. So we're going to do just the first year for this right now. So we have $500 times 4% times 1 year. If you pop that in your calculator, don't forget the percentage button, you will get $20. Now, what will the value of Tanya's investment be after 1 year? So the value of her investment is the present value plus the amount she made on interest. So it's going to be 520. This amount now is the new principal for the second year. So now we're going to look at the second year. You have 520 times 4 and then times 1. So this is 20.8. And then determine the value after year 2. So now we have the 520 we had plus the 20.8 will give us 540.8. Now this, once again, becomes your principal or your present value for the third year. So 540.8 times the 4% times 1 year is 21.63. So for D, when Tanya's 3-year GIC matures at the end of her 3 years, she will have 562.43 there, and it will pay her a total of 62.43. That's how much she will have made. Financial institutions, important to note that they don't always use annual compounding. So a lot of them sometimes use monthly or semi-annual. You can also have daily. So daily, if you're being compounded daily, means every single day they're recalculating it. So that's 365 times in 1 year. Monthly means at the end of it, well, at one point in every month. So 12 times a year. Quarterly is 4 times. Semi-annual is 2 times a year. And annually is 1 time. So now we're going to fill in these blanks on the missing terms. So monthly compounding results in interest being paid 12 times a year, 24 times in 2 years, and 36 times in 3 years. Quarterly compounding is 4 times in 1 year, 8 times in 2 years, and 12 times in 3 years. Semi-annual compounding is 2 times in a year, 4 times in 2 years, and 6 times in 3 years. So now we're going to go back to Tanya and say that later that year she buys a $1,000 GIC that also pays her 4% interest per year, compounded annually for 3 years. So we're going to determine the future value of her GIC. So we start over here with $1,000, and the rate is 4% for 1 year. And if you calculate that the same way we just calculated it before, where you have 1,000 times 4% times 1 year, you will get $40. Her future value is then $1,040 after 1 year. Now her 1040, just like before, becomes her present value for year 2. And then its interest rate is still 4%, and it's still just for 1 year. We calculate that, we'll get 41.6. And that brings us to $1081.6. So you're adding this one up. And then your 1081.60 comes over here and gets recalculated again. To give you a total at the end for her future value of 1124.86. So how much is she going to earn in interest? So she put $1,000 in. How much is she earning in interest? It's $124.86. Number 5, Jamil finds a financial institution that pays interest compounded semi-annually. He invests $1,000 that pays 5% per year, compounded semi-annually for 2 years. And then we'll see here that he earns interest how many times in 1 year? 2 times, which means every 6 months. A fraction, so this in a fraction is 1/2. Finally, how many times will he earn interest in 2 years? So there's 2 times a year times 2 years is 4 years. So now we're going to calculate the future of Jamil's investment in this table. And it's kind of asking here, how many rows do you need to be using? Now it's 2 years, but it is 2 times a year. So we're going to go with 4 rows. Okay? So we can make the rows in your table. And then we can start filling it in. So year 0.5, in then year 1, and then year 1.5, and then year 2. So we're starting with $1,000 at 5%. You could fill these all in too as well, since they're always 5%. And each time it's for half a year. So you can go ahead and pop that in as well. Now we're going to calculate the same way. 1,000 times 5% times 1/2 gives you $25. Your future value is now $10.25. That future value comes down here and gets calculated once again to give us $25.63. You add that to your present value of that year and you have $1050.63. And then you kind of just repeat it. And then you finally end up after the 2 years with 1106.80 and how much interest is being earned. Now remember that Jamil put in $1,000. So how much now is the difference? So you have at the end of the 2 years minus 1,000 is going to give you 106.80. So that's how much interest he earned. And that is the end of lesson 5.2.